Good evening. I'm your host, Whiskey Mike.
And I'm Keeper.
And this is your MPN news briefing for today. We are covering a world in motion, from the high-stakes corridors of NATO diplomacy to the literal shifting grounds of the Austrian Alps and southern Africa. The themes of 2026 are already becoming clear: technological resilience, environmental struggle, and shifting global power. Coming up, we'll look at why a mega rocket rollout is making a historic return to the lunar frontier, how a geopolitical standoff over Greenland has pushed the NATO alliance to its breaking point, and why a surge in AI demand is causing a full-blown crisis for gamers and tech enthusiasts alike. We also have a critical update on a high-level espionage arrest in Taiwan and a deepening humanitarian blackout in Iran. Let's dive into the briefing.
The Australian Alps endured a catastrophic period during the weekend of January 17th, as a series of deadly avalanches resulted in 8 confirmed fatalities in a single day. This surge in mountain casualties occurred despite rigorous preventative measures and the issuance of a Level 3 danger rating, which signals considerable risk to backcountry travelers. The primary catalyst for these disasters was a sequence of heavy snowfalls that deposited fresh, heavy accumulation atop older, fragile snowpacks. These unstable layers ultimately reached a breaking point, frequently triggered by the weight of skiers navigating the steep terrain. The distribution of these incidents highlights the widespread nature of the current environmental hazard. In Pusterwald, a part of the Czech skiers was overtaken by a slide that left 3 dead. While rescue teams successfully located the individuals, the duration of their burial rendered resuscitation impossible. Simultaneously, the Gastian Valley became the site of another tragedy when an avalanche struck a group of 7, resulting in 4 deaths. Further emphasizing the danger at high elevations, a separate slide claimed the life of a female skier in Bad Hofgasten at an altitude of 7,200 feet. These localized tragedies reflect a broader, more alarming trend across the European continent. With these latest casualties, the Austrian avalanche death toll for this current winter season has risen to 11. When viewed through a regional lens, the statistics are even more sobering. The wider Alpine territory, encompassing France, Switzerland, and Italy, has recorded a total of 23 deaths in just this past week. This spike in fatalities underscores the extreme volatility of the current alpine climate and the increasing difficulty of managing safety in high-altitude recreational areas.
Geopolitical tensions between the United States and its NATO allies escalated significantly this month as President Trump intensified diplomatic pressure on Denmark to cede sovereignty over Greenland, asserting that the island represents a vital strategic national security imperative. The administration has framed the acquisition as a necessary defensive measure to counter Russian and Chinese influence in the Arctic and as a central hub for the proposed Golden Dome missile defense system. This expansionist rhetoric has sparked a profound diplomatic rift, as both the Danish government and Greenlandic leadership remain steadfast in their refusal to negotiate the territorial integrity of the Danish realm. The confrontation reached a critical inflection point on January 17th when President Trump announced a 10% tariff on Denmark and 7 other European nations, including the UK, France, and Germany, as leverage to force a sale. In response to these coercive economic measures and threats of potential annexation, Denmark signals its intent to invoke Article 5 of the NATO Charter, arguing that an attack on Greenland would constitute an attack on all member states. This stance has bolstered the EU defense officials who warned that such an unprecedented breach of treaty by the United States would effectively signal the dissolution of the alliance. However, a possible path toward a de-escalation emerged on January 21st following a high-level discussions between President Trump and NATO. Secretary General Mark Rutte at the World Economic Forum in Davos. During his address, Trump explicitly ruled out the use of military force, characterizing a potential takeover as frankly unstoppable, but unnecessary for his current goals. He subsequently announced the suspension of the scheduled February 1st tariffs in favor of a newly established framework for long-term Arctic security. This aspirational agreement focuses on enhanced military cooperation and resource management, although critics remain wary of the long-term implications for transatlantic stability.
On January 17, 2026, NASA achieved a significant milestone in its Artemis II mission as the 322-foot-tall SLS rocket on the Orion spacecraft successfully reached Launchpad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center. The intricate 4-mile transit from the VAB required nearly 12 hours of precision coordination. This transition serves as a critical prerequisite for the mission's final terrestrial evaluations, moving the agency closer to its first crew lunar endeavor in over half a century. To facilitate the movement of the massive 11 million pound stack, NASA utilized its upgraded Crawler Transporter 2, an engineering marvel, roughly the size of a baseball diamond. Moving at a top speed of just 0.82 miles per hour, the Crawler relied on a specialized system of 16 hydraulic jacks to maintain the rocket's vertical alignment throughout the trek. Furthermore, the path was composed of Alabama River rock, specifically chosen for its ability to absorb hazardous vibrations that could otherwise compromise the rocket's sensitive internal components. The mission itself is slated to carry a diverse 4-person crew consisting of Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. On a 10-day journey, they'll mark the first human lunar flyby since the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. Before the official launch, which is tentatively scheduled for as early as February 6, 2026, the team will conduct a comprehensive wet dress rehearsal no later than February 2nd. This high-stakes test involves loading the SLS with over 700,000 gallons of supercooled propellants and performing a full launch countdown to validate all flight and ground systems.
In a significant shift for the retail and travel landscape, Florida is poised to surpass Texas as the home of the world's largest convenience store. The proposed Buc-ee's location in Fort Pierce is designed to encompass approximately 76,000 square feet, marginally exceeding the 75,000 square foot record currently held by the Luling, Texas facility. This expansion reflects the chain's aggressive growth strategy outside its traditional home state and Florida's ongoing rivalry with Texas for the title of the largest travel center in the world. The scale of the planned Fort Pierce outpost is unprecedented and intended to function as a massive highway oasis at the intersection of I-95 and Indrio Road. The site plans include the installation of 120 fueling stations, 18 electric vehicle charging ports, and nearly 800 parking spaces to accommodate the high volume of traffic on one of Florida's busiest travel corridors. This infrastructure is designed to handle thousands of daily visitors while offering the brand's signature amenities such as spotless restrooms and specialized food items. Economically, the project is expected to serve as a major catalyst for St. Lucie County, providing roughly 175 new jobs and attracting significant tourist revenue. Economically, the project is expected to serve as a major catalyst for St. Lucie County, providing roughly 175 new jobs and attracting significant tourist revenue. While final site approvals are still pending for certain utilities, the anticipated timeline for construction suggests an opening in late 2027 or early 2028. Once operational, the center will serve as a central hub for travelers commuting between Miami, Orlando, and the Space Coast, further solidifying Florida's status as a strategic growth market for the brand.
In a significant public address on January 17th, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei formally acknowledged that several thousand individuals have been killed during the recent wave of domestic protests. However, Khamenei largely deflected institutional responsibility, characterizing the unrest as foreign-instigated riots and labeling President Trump a criminal for his alleged role in inciting the violence. This rhetoric underscores the widening diplomatic chasm between Tehran and Washington, as the Iranian leadership continues to frame internal dissent as a byproduct of external subversion rather than a response to economic and social grievances. While the state's official figures are staggering, independent monitoring groups suggest the true death toll may be significantly higher. Reports from Iranian International indicate that as many as 12,000 fatalities may have occurred, with a particularly lethal surge in state violence reported during a near-total internet blackout on January 8th and 9th. This digital isolation served as a strategic shroud, allowing security forces to conduct a high-intensity crackdown away from the scrutiny of the international community and real-time social media reporting. The humanitarian crisis is further compounded by reports of a systematic lockdown of medical facilities. Security forces have allegedly seized hospital databases and blocked the release of casualty data to obscure the true scale of the injuries sustained by protesters. In response to this surveillance, the clandestine network of Iranian doctors has reportedly began performing surgeries in secret locations. These medical professionals are operating under immense personal risk to treat wounds from live ammunition and pellet rounds, as seeking official medical attention often leads to immediate arrest or disappearances.
A burgeoning GPU crisis has emerged in early 2026, driven by a structural shift in the semiconductor market where global memory supply is being aggressively diverted to AI data centers. This reallocation has severely impacted the consumer graphics card sector, leading to widespread rumors that popular mid-range models were being discontinued. Most notably, reports surfaced earlier this month claiming that the GeForce RTX 5070 Ti has entered end-of-life status as major partners like Asus struggle to secure the 16GB VRAM necessary for production. In response to these claims, NVIDIA issued a clarification stating that all GeForce SKUs remain in production and continue to ship to partners. However, the reality for consumers remains grim. While the cards are technically active, supply is so profoundly constrained that retail prices have inflated significantly. For instance, the RTX 5070 Ti, which carries a $749 MSRP, is frequently found listed at retailers for $1,100 to $1,250, while flagship models like the RTX 5090 have seen prices skyrocket towards $5,000 in some markets. The underlying cause of this volatility is a staggering surge in memory costs, with some RAM kit prices quadrupling since October 2025. Data centers are projected to consume over 70% of high-end memory produced this year, a demand driven by the massive infrastructure requirements of generative AI. Industry analysts at IDC and TrendForce suggest that this is not a temporary cyclical fluctuation, but a permanent reallocation of resources that could impact the consumer hardware market until at least 2027 or 2028.
On January 18th, South Africa formally declared a national state of disaster in response to catastrophic torrential rains and subsequent flooding that claimed over 100 lives across the southern African region. This includes Mozambique and Zimbabwe. On January 18th, South Africa formally declared a national state of disaster in response to catastrophic torrential rains and subsequent flooding that claimed over 100 lives across the South African region, including Mozambique and Zimbabwe. The declaration facilitates the immediate mobilization of federal resources to address a humanitarian crisis that has displaced thousands and severely compromised regional stability. Government officials have emphasized that the scale of precipitation has overwhelmed existing drainage infrastructure, necessitating an emergency multi-agency response to mitigate further loss of life. The economic and logistical impact of the deluge has been particularly acute in Limpopo province, which sustained infrastructure damage estimated at approximately $240 million. To combat the rising waters, the South African National Defense Force has deployed soldiers to conduct high-stakes aerial rescues for citizens stranded on rooftops and within trees. To combat the rising waters, the South African National Defense Force has deployed soldiers to conduct high-stakes aerial rescues for citizens stranded on rooftops and within trees. Beyond immediate life-saving efforts, these military units are tasked with the critical reconstruction of bridges and aerial roads that have been washed away, effectively isolating entire communities and essential services. Furthermore, the environmental and touristic sectors have faced significant disruptions, exemplified by the closure of Kruger National Park on January 15th. As one of the world's premier game reserves, the park was forced to execute emergency evacuation protocols for both international tourists and staff, as several internal camps and access gates were submerged by the surging rivers. The closure underscores the unprecedented nature of this weather event, as the park's management prioritizes safety over the substantial economic revenue typically generated by the reserve's peak season visitors.
In a notable expansion of Taiwan's counterintelligence efforts, the Saitao District Prosecutor's Office detained CTI news reporter Chen-yo on January 17th for his alleged role in a Chinese espionage ring. Lin, a prominent political journalist and anchor, is accused of acting as an intermediary for Beijing by utilizing personal accounts and cryptocurrency to funnel bribes to active duty and retired military personnel. This case has garnered significant international attention as it marks a rare instance where the Taiwanese government has targeted a member of the press under the National Security Act, raising complex questions regarding the intersection of press freedom and national defense. The investigation suggests a systemic effort to compromise sensitive military data through financial coercion. Lin allegedly targeted military officers facing financial difficulties, offering bribes ranging from several thousand to tens of thousands of new Taiwan dollars in exchange for classified weapons, specifically, and deployment plans. The scope of the leaked information is reportedly broad, encompassing details on missile defense systems, internal readiness assessments, and even unannounced visits by President Lai Ching-te of naval installations. A particularly striking element of the case involves a Marine Corps officer surnamed Chen, who was previously indicted for filing a video pledge of allegiance to China while holding a Chinese flag. Investigators discovered that Chen's activities were linked to Lin, who is suspected of recruiting multiple service members across the Army, Navy, and Air Force over the past 3 years. The ongoing probe has prompted Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense to strengthen its security clearance protocols and reinforce counter-infiltration education across all branches of the armed forces. Good evening. I'm your host, Whiskey Mike. Were your hands in there?
Yes, because I was trying to see how high this was.
Good evening.
I was trying to see how high it was, and you started to go, oh. I couldn't even not.
To the lateral shifting grounds of the literal.
I was going to let that one go, but then you stopped at Austrian.
No. I could say Austrian. It's just I said lateral, and I was like, that does not fit the context of this sentence.
This is wrong.
Good evening. Let me try that again. I didn't like that intro.
The two words I didn't like, good and evening. Bad morning. The surge in mountain casualties occurred despite rigorous...
Woo! That's fine. I needed a drink. Significantly this month, as President Trump spit in the general direction of the camera. Article 5 of the NATO Charter. Nope. Charter.
NATO Charger. Woo!
Yeah.
It must be a V6.
Yeah.
The crawler relied on a
You tried to say specific
I
instead of
did.
specialized? Yeah.
The funniest part is when I read it out loud, I did the same thing when I was. Furthermore, the path was compromised of Alabama River Rock.
That's not compromised. That's composed.
Oh, well. Not
This
feel
one?
like. Yep, just start there. Just hit play. So I don't feel like I'm rushing.
Russian?
Rushing. Why is the period 2 lines after? Why is I was like, where's the period?
I'm not the only one, right? Like, I'm sitting there going, Certain utilities, the intent...
Man, you're doing so good. You're doing so... You're bouncing. I was like, it still makes sense. You're doing so good. Oh, you're just bouncing ball, wrecking ball, Mike. Burn.
You were trucking through it.
You weren't reading the words, but you were getting the gist of it.
You're getting the point across. And it was working.
It was working.
Further solidifying Florida's status as a strategic...
Bottom of the hour.
Why was that so hard? What the hell?
Dr. Unrest.
Dr. Unrest in Iran.
Kameha.
Kameha!
You got through his name the first time.
I was shocked. Like, he breezed through the name the first time. I was like, oh,
you
man.
cleared his name the first time.
He's
so
just
well.
that good.
Necessitating.
Necessary.
Secret agent man.
Wow.
I heard it.
I heard it. As an intermarried. I just did this. Intermediary. Which totaled more than one something. NT?
NT.
What the fuck is it? NT?
That's
National.
New Taiwanese dollar.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I thought that was common knowledge.
I've never heard of a new Taiwanese dollar.
We stated it beforehand.
That doesn't mean that I'm going to remember that. Clearance protocols and reinforce.
I was going to let that one slide.
I
But you
was
stopped
too.
for too long.
Hey, you guys.
Finn! We're done! Woo!
Thank
I
you,
feel good.
Jesus.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Holy cow! So, when I wrote this, I knew this was going to be long. But I didn't think it was going to be an hour, 11 minutes long.